So it's interesting because like the U.S. essentially, let's call it the global hegemon, but then you have smaller, from the U.S. perspective, semi-periphery or periphery states, but they are also trying to become, in a way, their own core states. So China versus India, those are the two big regional powers in the Indo-Pacific. A lot of China's interests in Pakistan is to make sure India doesn't become the core state of the Indo-Pacific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a whole field in world systems theory, not a field, but like there's a whole sub-study about how semi-peripheries compete to reach the top because there's not a lot of room in the core. Like at one point Spain was a core, and then it slipped down. It's pyramidal for a reason, and not everybody can be in the core. So indeed, there is heavy balancing going on, and that is certainly one encouragement for China and Pakistan to deepen their relationship, which is, when they first established relations in the 50s, it was primarily military-based to balance India. And that's why China gave Pakistan nuclear know-how and missiles and stuff like that.
So you were saying the ways a core state influences the peripheries is through, was it economics, trade, and finance?
So those fall under economic dominance, production, trade, and finance. The economic dominance. Then there's the modi operandi, which is new legal codes. Also, the yuanization, using yuan more, socializing the states essentially. Also, other institutions, which like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, being a counterpart to, for example, the IMF. It can also finance projects without the constraints of the IMF. So these alternative institutions are part of this alternative world system.
How China tries to sinocize other places, in other words?
I don't think they... I don't know what its intention. I can't say what its intentions are. I can only tell you what the data is so far. I can't tell you, it wants to do this and it wants to do that. It seems very, very likely that this is its intention, at least with states like Pakistan, which are so important to it.
Well, I think what I was getting at is you're talking about how the core influences the periphery. You have economic things, and then it seems like what you were describing is sort of changing the way a country thinks. What's next?
The general interest of infrastructure that I spoke about earlier. And there's other manifestations, Gramsci and Wallerstein agree that culture and language are also manifestations of hegemony. So this goes into cultural exchanges between countries. I haven't seen it that strongly because I haven't looked at it that well, but I think that is the weak point of China is like cultural soft power. And it failed in the Middle East to really implant cultural soft power. It may be more successful in Pakistan, especially because Pakistan has a lot of WeChat users and a lot of schools that are making Mandarin obligatory. It's no longer just, you can either take English or Mandarin. No, you will take Mandarin in addition to whatever other languages. And also through legislation that makes that the Senate took, as I mentioned, to make people who work in CPAC learn Mandarin quicker, which are tens of thousands of people. So this will permanently change Pakistan. What the U.S. can do in this regard, if we're talking about what the U.S. can and should do, one of the few advantages the U.S. still has left in Pakistan is that the U.S. is Pakistan's #1 export destination. So long as this is the case, China's peripheralization remains imperfect. But China's imports from Pakistan are increasing as China changes what Pakistan is producing. So under economic and trade production, you have changing of not only what is produced, but how much of it is produced to satisfy the core's demand. So if China wants more rice, it will make Pakistan produce more rice for it at the expense of, for example, car factories or core processes that would empower Pakistan. So what America could do is invest in core processes in Pakistan that would kind of empower it against China and be like, okay, no, I will not be weaker than you. I can do this and I can do that. You know what I mean? But I'm not saying that this is what should happen. I'm just saying these are strategies that could be considered.
Well, so you mentioned, we were talking earlier how the economic. Let's use Pakistan as an example. China's economic influence there creates political influence. And it seems like that political influence can also potentially lead to military influence. The port of Gwadar, China, it seems, wants that for a potential deep water port for its navy.
Yes, that's a great point. The port of Gwadar is very versatile. Now, on paper, depending on who you read, it says the port of Gwadar is actually a very good strategic point for multiple reasons. On the trade side, it's right next to the Arab Gulf. Also, exports from Pakistan are not tariffed as heavily as China's exports. And the right now, where it stands, China gets more than 80% of revenue from when it completes the port of Gwadar. So it's gonna use Gwadar as a sock puppet to export its own products and get revenue that would have otherwise been lessened because of higher tariffs on itself. When it comes to military, India, of course, is the most wary of this happening. But despite China shifting more resources towards becoming a naval power, which is a market hegemony, is becoming a naval power, there haven't been very strong indicators that this is what's going to happen. It might, but according to what I've read, there's more data to suggest that it's going to be primarily a trade port than a military port. Maybe it might become both. I'm not sure, but according to my research, where it stands right now, it's a trade port.
Well, practically, I would think that would have to happen after China settles the Taiwan issue, for instance.